Wayne Hemingway MBE is one of the UK's most respected designers. Raised by his mum and grandparents, he regards a quality life as an adventure of the soul, and together with his wife of over 3 decades, Geraldine, founded and then sold the club culture brand Red or Dead. So is there any correlation between life's challenges and success? What are the transferable skills needed to turn your hand from designing fashion to then redesigning a Lancashire town? Let's find out. Hello, welcome to the Designerati podcast.
I do.
So, I do.
How do.
Oh, how do?
How do, yeah.
Is that what they say in Morecambe?
Well, I think it's probably more of a Lancashire. Morecambe is in Lancashire, more of a Blackburn phrase, really.
And that's where you were born and bred?
I was born in Morecambe, brought up in Blackburn, formative years in Blackburn, yeah.
Yeah, and now you're here, based in London?
Been in London moved down in 1979 when I was 18, and spent the week in London and then weekends often on the south coast, yeah. And
that makes you quite old, and you look absolutely incredible. And you told me before this podcast that you are an incredible human. You ran 17 miles already this week.
I run about
there.
70 miles a week, but the last few months I've been ripped hamstring and Achilles, but I'm back. As of the last few days, I'm back out running and feeling good again, because I've not known life. I ran my first marathon in 1979 when I was 18, and I've not known life. I've not known life from not running. And so when you have any runner knows that when you have an injury that goes on for more than a few days, you get a bit you miss it a lot.
Which decade are you in? Wait a sec. Now, are you in the 60s?
I'm in my 60s. Yeah.
Incredible.
61.
Unbelievable. I have to say, if you're not watching this on camera, you just have an amazing skin. And I also commented that you look like you're sun-kissed, like you've been sunbathing.
Yeah, I think my skin is down to my background. I'm half I'm supposed to only call now First Nation. So first, you have to work that out yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
First Nation Canadian. So and if I say that my father lives on a reservation, you can work out what I am in old money.
Yes.
And so that's why it's the amount of people, like you said before this interview, where have you been on holiday? I get it all the time, and it's kind of I actually don't mind, but I could imagine some people feeling a bit funny about it, but I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
My intention is never.
No, I wouldn't. I actually have never ever been.
I think you look really handsome.
I actually have never.
Energetic.
Thank you very much. But I've never actually been. But probably this week because I've started running again, and you catch the sun when you run. So I am darker than I would be in normal times. I must have been 3 or 4. Oh, where have you been? You look like you've been on a fantastic holiday. And I've been running in semi-cloudy skies in London for the last few days.
Yeah, well, there's so much I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about your childhood, etc. If we can start, so typically, as is the format of this podcast, we start with what we call an icebreaker. So if you can share something with our viewers and our listeners that they might not naturally associate with you, something that might surprise us.
Well, I suppose it's the number of grandkids that I've got. I've got 4 grandkids and maybe another one on the way. So
congratulations.
So that's and I never thought. Number one, I never thought I'd have 4 kids. I'm an only child, and I just it wasn't something I ever thought. That I just I was never interested in kids that much and having kids. But then it's been the best thing. Any parent's going to say. Well, most parents are going to say that. And just being a grandfather is just blooming.
You're too young to be a grandfather.
It's blooming brilliant.
Is it?
And I'm.
Why? Because you can give them back.
Well, that's the kind of cliche, isn't it? But it's one of those cliches that's absolutely true. I think you get the best out of, when you've got kids. You've got your kids when they're in their best moods, and when they're in their worst moods, and you've got them when they're not sleeping at night and all of that. But grandkids, they tend to misbehave a bit more for their parents and then play up to their grandkids because they know they're going to get chocolate. They're more likely to get ice creams and chocolate from granddad than from mum and dad. So that's how it works, really.
You're a pretty cool granddad. I mean, what a career you've had, and what a life you've had, and these are some of the things I want to talk about.
Still having it?
Yeah, we're still having it. You're still
Yeah.
having it. I also want to comment. I want to ask you a question. You know, you arrived, and I'd done some research, and you used to drive a Prius that had 230,000 miles on the clock. And I noticed, you know, look, I've researched you. Your accomplishments look like something off a Hall of Fame.
And that's quite an accomplishment. I think that I'm so proud of that accomplishment.
What, the Prius?
Yeah, well, it was the first Prius that came in the UK. So I was lucky enough to, because we've, you know, through Red or Dead days and through Hemingway Design, we've always had, you know, sustainable credentials, and we've always been known for that. So I've always been given the chance to try things that were, you know, a little bit forward thinking. So at the time, it was in 2003 when the first Prius that came into the UK, you know, and nobody had heard of hybrids before or anything like that. So I was given the chance to drive it for a month, and in return, comment on its design and its usability and all of that. So I did that, and I absolutely just loved it. I just loved the silence. I loved it was the first time ever, and it, you know, it's a long time ago now. That's 19 years ago, but it was just how modern that felt, that you could actually look on a screen in front of you when you were driving and look, because it basically told you if you were driving well or not, because if you drove below 30 miles an hour, you didn't use any petrol, which was fantastic for me, being kind of crazily thrifty, you know, never liking spending any money, and also being green in inverted commas as well. So here I was, being able to drive and not spend any money and do good at the same time. So I said, look, when you finish, so I said to Toyota, when you've finished with this car as a trial, sending it around all these different people, would you be interested in selling it? And they said, oh, well, we'll see how it goes. And then, so it had done about, it had only done about 2,500, and they said, right, we've finished with this demonstration model. Would you like to buy it at a discounted price? So I bought it. And then up until fairly recently, we used it. It actually reached 248,000 miles before it gave up the ghost. But I really wanted to get to 300,000. In a way, I think it's amazing to have the first of something that was really a trial, and for it to be that good, but then didn't quite reach my goal. It's like when you're running and you're injured before the marathon or something.
That's frustrating. But okay, so you find the progressiveness of the design, the concept, you know, interesting. I find the fact that you are a bit of not a rock star, you're a superstar, yeah?
I'm not a superstar.
All right, let me
I'm
think.
just not a superstar.
For me, you are, right? Don't invalidate my feelings. Your accomplishments are pretty fantastic, right? And you're driving a 240,000 mile Prius, you know, I can see, you know.
That costs £16,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Well, it's felt like a lot of money at the time.
It is a lot of money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's still got 240,000 miles on it. And also, I seen your watch, yeah? Things like watches, yeah? You've got, what is it, a Mickey Mouse watch?
It's a Swatch.
A Swatch watch.
Yeah, it's a very old,
I love that.
It's a good stuff. This is, again, Swatch is I've no shares in Swatch. I've never been given a Swatch, but they work, and they look unobtrusive. They're not flashy, and the great thing about them is that when the strap breaks, you can take it back in and they replace the strap, often for free. And when the battery goes, they put a battery in. So why wouldn't you buy it? And again, I've never designed for Swatch. I've got no relationship with them, but I've got a relationship with things that work, that are functional, that last,
and are good quality.
And that are thrifty. You know, I mean, so I don't get why somebody would covet a Rolex. It's beyond my thinking of what, and the same why somebody would covet a Bentley or something like that. It doesn't make sense, because you're probably giving money to a company that doesn't need it. There's probably less sustainability in the fact that if something lasts a long time, yes, but what could you do with? I wouldn't even know what a Rolex costs, obviously in the thousands compared to a Swatch at 30 quid. But what you could do with that money, you know, whether that was giving it to somebody, whether that was helping the next generation along, whether it was employing somebody else at work, you know, there's so much that you could do with that, and I don't get that putting it on your wrist, what it does for you, because I look at it on people and think, often dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but it's a very different way of thinking.
Yeah. Well, it's connected with our values, isn't it? And I would challenge you and say, forget thrifty, because that's denigrating your character. I would say you're quirky. Like, I'm looking at the way you dress and it all makes sense. Really good quality. What is that? A linen or a...
Well, most
shirt?
things I wear are second-hand. They always have been. Or occasionally, if it's a really good piece of workwear from a company like Universal Works, it's going to last. You know, it's going to last. But I think because of my background and because of my upbringing in a stylish family, and because I was out nightclubbing and watching bands very, very early, and in the right, because if you're moving in the right crowds at the right age, in the right clubs, and watching the right bands, most people do develop an innate sense of style, and when you do that, fashion becomes very easy. And so, you know, I know, like, I never look in a mirror. I put my clothes on in the morning, and I know what I'm going to look like, because I know what my style is, and it doesn't change much. You know, it's kind of short, crop trousers, quite wide, a kind of shirt that was a 4-pocket shirt that was designed. But, you know, it was designed in the 60s, in the early 60s, but was still made today, these kind of shirts. I know, and probably a pair of sensible Lokes type brogues with a squarish front. I know what I'm going to, and I'll have, you know, of this kind of shirt that you're looking at now, I've got 150 stacked up in a wardrobe. Most of them will not have cost me more than £5, so it's not exactly, you know, it's not like I'll have found them over the years. I can't go past a charity shop without. And again, you develop that eye if you get fashion where you don't need to spend money on fashion, because you can spot how to look good, you know, from especially menswear. I think it is a little bit different with women's fashion, which still moves quicker and changes, but men, you know, there is if you know your look and you know what you look good in, then it's very easy.
When people say Wayne Hemingway, you know, okay, you're a modest human. Okay, I can instinctively sense that already. What do you think people describe you as?
Well, it's weird, because I still get stopped. So, I saw you on. I remember you from the Big Breakfast. So I've had this kind of relationship, which is like, it must be 20 years ago. It might be more. I can't actually remember. But
who were you on that with, Denise?
It was
and Johnny.
It was Johnny Vaughan, Denise Van Houten, and I did 2 days a week presenting it, and I did that. And it was the perfect time to promote, because television's, if you can do television and you don't get nervous and you can speak, and you know, you don't have that like I can. I don't have that kind of. I don't have to think, really. It just happens. So I've got a mouth on me. Then telly's quite easy. So we all used to just turn up at like 6:30, live at 7:00, finished at 9, and the promotion that you got out of it was amazing. So it was great at that stage. It must have been when I started doing that. I guess I was in my 30s, so it must be 30.
Is this after Red or Dead?
No, it's during Red or Dead. So that was amazing promotion for Red or Dead, and so I'd just do it, get paid to do it, and get Red or Dead all over the telly twice a week, and that was great. And then when we sold Red or Dead, I carried on doing it, and did an architecture and urban design day, believe it or not, on an interiors day on the Big Breakfast. So that was helping. It helped start Hemingway Design. But like, it's still, you know, you still get recognised, and it's kind of, what do people know you for? Well, I think in the design industry, people know, hopefully, and the new generation, because obviously most people who are younger than me in the industry now, they'll know me and know Hemingway Design. Oh, listen to that thunder! That's a good one, isn't it? That was proper thunder. Yeah, that was great. How often do you hear that?
No, thank goodness
brilliant.
We're inside.
Yeah. So, you know, for people know Hemingway Design, and they'll know about the urban design work that we do, the town centre stuff, the place branding, and increasingly the events that we do in all around the UK.
I think you've got a cool image, and I just wonder how different is the image of what people think you are, how is it different to who you really are?
Well, I think, the media kind of portray anybody who's in the public eye to an extent as being, as being different from the average man and woman. But I can honestly say that nobody in the Hemingway family is, and
normal or different.
Well, we're normal. We couldn't be. Obviously, we've got money now, and we're all from myself and my wife are from backgrounds with no money whatsoever. So you are different. We don't have to think about. We don't have to struggle like I remember my mum and my nan and my pop, and Geraldine's one of 5 sisters who lived, and daughters obviously because they're all women, who lived in a 2 up 2 down ex-workers cottage in Padiham near Burnley. 2 up 2 down, and 5 and 7 people living it. That tells you, the kind of and I was brought up in a little bungalow, and with four of us in a tiny little bungalow, so we've obviously changed because we don't have the worries, and all I remember is my mum with a piece of paper and my nan on a piece of paper on the wall with how much money they had, and then ticking off with lines through it until showing how much was left in the week, and that's and Geraldine similar, and that stuck with us, and so I think you are a product of your upbringing, and my upbringing was without a doubt a working class family that wanted to never ever get in debt, and always be never, just by being careful, to be comfortable. And you can't, and I think it meant that all the things that are dear to me now about thrift and sustainability were absolutely ingrained in me in us as a family before the word sustainability meant anything. And just simple things like, we were never allowed to waste anything. Food, it was a cardinal sin to waste food. Every single space, from a window box to the little tiny yard out the back, was growing things. Potatoes in old buckets. Every single, all my toys were made by my granddad. We've still got, passed right down to grandchildren now, a fort, and the soldiers, a fort that he made, in the garden, and lead soldiers. I'm sure we're not supposed to let the grandkids play with them nowadays, but they do. Lead soldiers that have been poured into moulds that he had made, and when you've been brought up like that, and every single newspaper that we had to be ripped into shreds. We'd sit there ripping it because they would go around the strawberries to stop the frost getting the strawberries. And when you're like that, how can you change? And if you do, you're not true to yourself. And when you have, my mum always said, you're on this earth. There was 2 things that I remember about things that were bequeathed to me in terms of life. And one was my mum saying, you're only here. Oh, no, it was my granddad who said, "You're only here 70, make the most of it." Obviously, that's 70 means the score is 20, isn't it? So that's 70. Obviously, now most of us get a bit.
Please God, my partner's 65.
Yeah, most of us get to 80 now. That's the average, isn't it, or something? So before score nowadays, and my mum said, what we should do as human beings is leave this place a better place than we found it, and that was, that's how we lived, and so I don't see how sometimes when I see people who betray the background that they're from, and then everything's about flash, being flash and not caring about, and just kind of thinking I'll leave all that in the past. It doesn't seem right to me. So it's just been natural for us to stay grounded. But having said that, we're obviously not as grounded as you would be if we had no money.
Do they go hand in hand? I'm not sure. Grounded is a mindset, and I think, what you clearly, you've just told me you've got money and you seem very grounded. You arrived here today and asked for a hot chocolate, which, that's just,
What else would I have asked for?
for me, that's someone
that's
quirky. That's somebody that doesn't care what people think about them subconsciously.
Yeah, well, I actually genuinely don't care.
Yeah,
because I don't.
You're not conventional.
That would get in the way. I don't care a hoot what people think of me, because I know I'm not a bad un. So it's fine if somebody thinks ill, then that's their issue, isn't it?
How have your values transcended through to your kids? You were talking about being true to your upbringing.
Yeah, well, that's
none of your kids are entitled, are they?
No, the kids are. I'm very proud of how they've how they're growing up and how grounded they are, and all the grandkids are. None of them are sending their kids to private school. They've all grown up with the same political views as us. That's often the case, and the great thing is that they've never moved in. They just like we've always been. I still pick up the Evening Standard. I actually think the paper's gone downhill so much, but I still pick it up when I'm on the tube sometimes if I just want to look at something. And one of the first things you open it at, and it has all of the so-called glitterati out at nightclubs, and it's all the set. You read the names, you don't really know them nowadays, but you see the names, and you think, and often they're the kids of famous, fairly well-known people there.
Kids are famous parents.
Yeah, and you just look at it and you think, oh my God, thank God my kids have never done anything like that, and like they've settled down with, like my daughter's settled down and had 2 kids with Dan from Blackburn, who plays in 2 fairly hard rock bands, and but not famous rock bands. That's his hobby, and a fantastic dad that he is, and they've all just settled down with the same kind of background that me and Geraldine would have settled down with. There's none of it. And I'm, in a way, I'm thinking, how the hell's that happened? And I'm, how come with having relatively famous parents and having the privilege of the travel that we've done as a family, and and living in the nice home that we live in now, but they've absolutely they've stayed true to our background. The biggest things in sons' lives are Blackburn Rovers. They've not even gone and supported it's just great to see. I'm so proud of it.
You're not afraid, are you, of saying controversial things? And what did wimpification? Yeah,
I mean, if something needs saying and you're not just being gratuitous. I mean, I've got a very...
That was to do with new bills, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that was in 2000, I reckon, around 20 odd years ago. So,
and then 2012, the High Street's dead. People thought that was controversial, though it turned out, to be quite a truth.
Yeah, I mean, that was when I read that article again, I thought, whoa, that's 10 years ago, and basically
you were onto something.
Yeah, that's what people are saying now. But what it did, it was clear. It was clear that they were all going to start closing down the Debenhams and the BHSs. It was obvious to us, and so we wrote about it and wrote about it. Well, it's great though, because we, as a family, we took.
But at the time, the Guardian pitched it as you were outspoken. That is something that you shouldn't really be saying.
Yeah, I mean, but it was obvious to us that those brands were finished, and that Philip Green his time was coming as well. It was, and it was really, really obvious, because I think if you're in touch with new generations and having 4 kids who, at that time, early 20s, the kids would have been in their early 20s and late, one of them in their teens. They knew that their generation. We all talked about it. We're not going to that those big brands and those behemoths were dead and finished, and that people were moving towards a more sustainable thinking, something with more provenance, more independent spirit was coming along. There was that feeling of change, and it wasn't. When I wrote the article, I didn't think it was that controversial, but then the media storm around it to say I got it wrong. And
how did you cope with that? I mean, you're a high-profile human who, I'm assuming, much of your business is created through your network, who perceive you, in a certain light? And, was there a ripple effect that...
No, not really. There's never has been. I mean, I've done things, things in from Red or Dead days where we banned, we've always been very close to Greenpeace, and we had Greenpeace on one of their big banners on the back of our catwalk in, I don't know, this must have been about 96, 97, maybe a bit earlier than that, when the French were doing nuclear testing in an atoll in the South Pacific, and so we banned 25% of our turnover was to France, and we banned that year any French retailers from coming to our catwalk show and buying.
Ballsy.
Yeah, because but yet it worked.
How did it work?
Well, it worked because we more than compensated for that from other countries covering this, that we'd banned the French, who were the leading fashion nation in the world. We said we weren't going to sell to them.
But I can't imagine you did that with that intention.
No, not with
you seem quite an ethical human.
No, not with the intention of sales going up. But if you do things right, we started to learn. Nowadays, I know that if you're never going. You can't please everybody. You can't please a Guardian reader and a Daily Mail reader. The people are different, but you also can't go. People and brands that go away from what their values are don't please anybody. So we've always known where we stand, who our following is, and we know that if we lost it somewhere, we're going to grow it somewhere else. And it's been all the way through from, the Wimpification and Barrettification of Britain, is a big one. We didn't, again, going decades back, when Red or Dead decided to make all its clothing one season, or all its workwear in full Sutton prison in York, we knew that the furore that would cause, and because we'd seen it happening in America about clothes being made in prison.
Jails. What's your rationale for it then?
Well, the rationale was, one, to be true to workwear from a fashion point of view, that workwear was always traditionally made in jails, and two, about retraining, and the concept that if you leave somebody to rot in prison, and they're not given anything or given the chance to do something that was constructive and useful, when they come out, they may still reoffend. And I'd read about the thing that if people learn new skills in prison and but it really upset some of the papers, especially that prison, because that's the prison of lifers and murderers, and it really, but we stuck to our guns, and number one, the clothing was great, and number two, we were doing something that we believed in, and that some other people believed in as well, and so we've always been like that.
Where have you got your? See, there's my northern. Did you just hear it then?
Yeah.
We were just talking before we went on air, and Wayne said to me, I can't detect your Manchester twang, and I just said it. Where have you?
Yeah.
How are you? In psychology, we call it congruence. How have you developed this this ability to be aligned with your values? Many people kind of live behind a mask, and they'll pretend they are somebody else, for commercial reasons. You seem very aligned. Like, this is who I am. This is what This is who I am. This is what I'm going to say I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to do it. Where's that confidence come from?
Well, I think the confidence probably again comes from that youthful confidence, so my mum was very open with me in terms of allowing me to do things, which when you look back, it was a combination of, she had 3 jobs, she went out to do 3 jobs, day, evening, and late at night. She was a croupier in a
fabulous. And
which you don't hear that word very often, do you now? Croupier.
I love.
But lots of people won't know. I'm not even going to explain. People have to look up what a croupier is.
Yeah.
Young people probably won't know what that is.
Look at Playboy. Did you ever go to the Playboy Club?
No, I didn't,
in London?
No.
Fabulous.
No.
Yeah.
So and I was, because she did things very young and went out very young, and the pictures of her as a 16-year-old looking absolutely amazing,
Stunning.
making her own clothes and all of that, and going out underage, and and I was born She had me quite young, and
How old was she?
well, she was 24, but by then she'd had a boyfriend in France, and and she'd lived at my mum, and then so I was I went to see David Bowie on my own at 12 in King George's Hall in
Why?
Blackburn. Not on my own, but with other 13 and 14-year-olds.
And he was someone you were a fan of his?
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about, at that time it was his Aladdin Sane tour. Obviously he was making noise, and you'd heard about David Bowie, but we didn't really know he was going to, I don't think anybody knew he was going to be the icon that he became. But then at 13 I was going to, a seminal nightclub called Wigan Casino, which was a Northern Soul club. But to be able to be allowed, imagine this, so it started at 11:30 midnight from memory, and went on till 8 o'clock in the morning.
And you're 12 years old.
13 years old, and a club that you're supposed to be 18, but nobody checked any, and a club that was full of drugs, which I didn't take, but I fell in love with black music, soul music, and then certainly by the age of 14, I was going to. This was a normal weekend to go to a place called Blackpool Mecca. So I'd get a coach to Blackpool, then the coach to Wigan at 2 o'clock in the morning, around 1:30 in the morning. It would take half an hour or so, 40 minutes to get to Wigan. Stay at Wigan till 8 o'clock in the morning. Go in the baths in the morning, in the baths in Wigan.
The swimming pool.
Yeah, swimming pool. Then go to a cafe, and then go to the Ritz in Manchester to an all-dayer. And so I'd be dancing from 9 o'clock in Blackpool through the night to an all-dayer, and then get back home to Blackburn on a bus maybe about 9 or 10 o'clock on a Sunday, and go to school the next day.
So this was something that was within your soul.
This was 14 years old.
Music was something that you loved from an early age.
And then by 15, when punk came along, I was up and down with a couple of mates to London all the time, going to watch all the bands, and just life. That's what life was about.
No school.
Yeah, I went to school, but it wasn't a big, and I enjoyed the school I went to, and played a lot of sport there, and did pretty well at school. But it didn't. School wasn't. If I had to remember what my years 13 to 18, I remember nightclubs and bands. That's what I remember. My memories. I have to work hard to remember school. And there's other things that are more important, actually. I remember, if I had to put it in order, it will be nightclubs, the dancing, bands, Blackburn Rovers, and girls. That would have been, and then school would have come after that. Didn't watch a lot of telly.
Who taught you? I mean, my kid's 11, nearly 12, yeah? And to think about him in a couple of years hanging out, doing all-nighters in nightclubs, I mean, he needs sleep, to wash, to rest.
Yeah, but does he? I would question. I think, all right, some people become more mature, but I think if you do what really excites you in life, and what really makes you do what you really want to do, you're more likely to become that excited, that have that joie de vivre, have that.
And you've got that.
I still today get excited by music and the idea of dancing and everything like that, and without all of that, if I hadn't done that, there'd have been no. And Geraldine was the same. She left school at 15 with no qualifications whatsoever. I think she got a grade C in CSE in art. CSE, yeah, in a CS, which was people who were not, O level, were level below O level.
Yeah, and now we've got GCSEs, haven't we?
Yeah. So yes, and she left school at 15 so that she could earn money as a trainee wages clerk to buy fabric on Blackman Market to go out dancing, and to go out to clubs and bands. And we met in a disco, but. And
they're not called discos anymore.
No, well, nightclub nowadays, isn't it? Yeah,
I call them discos.
Yeah. And so, but without that, her background, she learnt to make clothes just to go out because she wanted to look the coolest in the clubs. I learnt to buy second-hand clothes, adapt second-hand clothes, everything that I know was learnt either to go out dancing or in the bands that I played in. Everything was about that. And that is, I still feel that was better training to be a designer than anything, than anything else I could have done. I don't think we would have had the success if any of us had gone to college. I think the success of Red or Dead, it came to us really, really early, and we were shit hot. To win Designer of the Year on 3 years on a row, it's never happened before, and it may never happen again. And to have, to open 20 odd shops around the world, 300 odd staff, and have a 25 million turnover without ever doing a business plan, without ever borrowing a penny, and that wouldn't have. You can't learn to do. You can't go to college to learn how to do that. You have to know what you're about. You have to know, and the same, and it's the same with that passion for urban design that we have and everything. That comes from an emotional, a political look at the world, and caring about life and about people. I actually don't think, again, that any training would have, we got our MBEs for urban design and not for fashion, and our best piece of work yet is something that Geraldine, the Staithe South Bank, a big housing development. No, she's never had any training in she drew the houses, did the master plan, worked with architects, but she's the one that did it, and that wouldn't have come from training. That came from something more important than training.
I know you're an advocate. Another time you came under scrutiny was with the internships, and now we're moving away from just paying their expenses and we're paying them.
That was a complete lie from the meet. That was Daily Mail again. I did just picking on, did just pick. He's in the public eye. It was a complete and these things that. But that's the other thing. You just have to deal with it and shrug it off.
Okay, so just for anybody who doesn't know, what we're talking about is interns used to get paid expenses only, and now they've moved to a wage, a minimal wage plus expenses,
living wage.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about that is that again, because we don't. You have a choice in life, don't you? If you stand up for things or not. So we stood up. We decided to stand up for that because it was a complete lie. So
what did you do?
Oh, they had to print an apology. So did the BBC, who followed the and you get so much from that.
What, did you hire a lawyer?
No, we do hire lawyers, but we didn't have to on this occasion because it was a complete lie. We said, you're lying. You better start to prove it, or else we will get a lawyer on you because you're completely lying. And they have to start to. They make a calculated gamble, but they might look at our background. We have got a fairly good history of if injustice is done, we'll go for it. So the amount of times that we were copied by the high street Topshop, I remember getting paid a lot of money in about the early 90s when they copied a Red or Dead outfit, and we just threw a massive party. It was just fantastic,
Why?
Well, we'd come into a lot of money as a result of. We probably made more money out of that than we would out of the whole collection that season.
So some people might have looked at it and thought, oh my gosh, my brand's getting ripped off, but you actually thought, I'm actually going to seek justice here. And
we always do. I mean, it's still the last couple of years where people have, we've got a brand called the Classic Car Boot Sale where other people have started to copy it, use the name. You have to, as a designer, you can either take it as a form of flattery, or you can think, actually, it's not right. So we never think about it, because nowadays we don't really go for money. Although we did do a few years ago on another one. I won't say which one that was, but I think we don't like being, when you've worked hard to do something, we don't like somebody else. If it was something that was for the common good. But if it's somebody else making money out on the back of what you've worked hard for, then we go for it.
How would you encourage a young human to cultivate their passion?
Well, I think you have to follow what you're interested in. I'm not from the school of thought where you look for a gap in the market and you work hard at that. I think you look for something that really interests you. That's what I would always say. Something that you really want to do rather than something you're doing because you see, there's potential to make money there.
Yeah, like let's go into tech because it's going to earn me a fortune.
Yeah, you're more likely. I think you're more likely to succeed, and whatever level of success, the biggest level of success is being happy, getting up in the morning and going to work. That, and I think if you are happy, you're more likely to succeed. Yes, I mean some people can be successful just thinking of a gap in the market, and there are serial entrepreneurs who like to make money, but I think that's quite hard.
But for you, being happy along with the financial success and being passionate about what you do, that needs to come from your authentic self.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, we've always. I mean, the reason why we sold Red or Dead in what most people would think was the wrong time. It was on a massive growth spurt and an upward spiral, and we sold it. And there was a bit of a disagreement with myself and my Geraldine. She didn't want to sell it, but I'd had enough. I'd had enough of the fashion industry. I didn't feel it was. I felt there's other things I wanted to do in life, and I think just moving like that and moving, and still today we don't make plans. We just think, is this really interesting? If it's really interesting and it's something that's stimulating to the brain, then we'll have a go at it. We never think about will it earn us money, but it will earn you money if you're excited by it.
Interesting. That's a lovely philosophy. Yeah. Let's touch a little bit. I haven't even asked you about Red or Dead. It's based on a Russian peasant clothing style.
Well, the first collection, Geraldine was in Kensington Market, which was a market in Kensington High Street where you just paid a tenner, and it was an indoor market, and you 6 days a week. And she took a sewing machine in there. There was lots of other people who had sewing machines in there, and lots of famous people from today like Boy George, and so many people were in that market at the time. And it was London, it was Britain's major place for young people to have a go at being creative. And she took a sewing machine in there. She made 8 items of clothing. It was based on a Russian peasant look that she wore herself. That was a look she went to nightclubs in. Didn't put a label in it. We got an order from Macy's New York, who walked up the street.
Random. You're in the UK and you're getting.
Yeah, well, London Fashion Week, which we'd never heard of, was taking place down at Olympia. They'd wandered into, half a mile up the road into Kensington Market, placed an order with Geraldine stuff. Mum left a job working in a pub in Blackburn, set up a factory. Some of Geraldine's sisters packed in their jobs and joined in, and we employed a few people and came up with the label Red or Dead, and that's how it all got going, really. And then
and then you create a massive multi-million-pound empire. Some people might say because you were brought up without your dad playing an active part for the formative years, that could have translated into you becoming a victim. I don't see any sense of that within you. How was your childhood?
No, I mean, I had a fantastic childhood. I mean, my mum amazing, my nan amazing, kind of wild. Both of them wild to an extent.
Your grandma was?
Yeah. And my pop, just really solid. So there was that wildness and that exuberance and fashion, always sewing machines going, always tear outs of magazines, always dressing up, and loads of dancing and loads of music. So I was bound to turn out like I did. But then there was my pop, who was just dead solid, brilliant at sport, played hockey for Yorkshire. I think he played hockey for Yorkshire. Musical, played in the Grimethorpe Colliery Band in Cudworth near Barnsley. That's where my family were originally from before they moved to the coast for health reasons. And was just good at sport, solid, making things, and really down to earth. And I think having those, I can see
that balance.
Yeah. And so it was an amazing to be brought up in a household like that.
So I'm interested in, you went from your background, your degree is actually in geography.
And town planning.
Town planning.
Yeah.
Okay. And you launched Red or Dead. You then sold that to a private equity, via a private equity company. And then you've moved back to your original training, urban planning, urban regeneration.
Yeah, I mean, we'd never planned to do that, and I never thought I would. But it came from, the idea that we were seeing some pretty awful housing estates and from being a cyclist and a runner, just some strange layouts of all this. And I just thought all this could be done better. And it was only by me being mouthy again and writing a piece in the Independent and then getting on Newsnight saying how bad I felt the built environment, how bad all these noddy boxes and these houses that the big builders were building that ended up working for one of them and delivering the Staiths, and then going on from there and becoming on the board of CABE, the Commission for Architecture and the Built Environment, and then chairman of Building for Life in the early years of, for 8 years, chairman of Building for Life, which was the national standards for housing, on board of the Design Council, and it just happened.
I mean, you've got some fantastic. You've done Dreamland, Bognor Regis.
Yeah, I mean, we're working all around the country, and it's a really good young team of.
You're not messing around. I mean,
no, we've done
go big or go home with you.
Yeah, in the last 3 years, we've done. We've led on. We put teams together and won big bids and have delivered town centre master plans for Andover, Newbury, Boscombe, Kidderminster, Cleethorpes.
For a man from Morecambe, like, where is this kind of wisdom coming from?
Well, it's not just coming from me.
But you're hiring teams.
Yeah, all of these are collaborations. We might lead them, but there's amazing people that we work with. We have an eye for. We put people together who are complementary to our views but share our views and are not just, the great thing is that we're going into these bids. We're bidding against. I remember the Andover one. We were bidding against the shortlisted 29, some of the biggest urban design companies in the UK, and we won. And we win loads of them. Certainly more than we lose. And I think the reason is that we're going into it not thinking about the fee, but thinking about the value that we can deliver for the people of that town.
Interesting.
And that's exactly how we've always been. There's no difference. We didn't go into fashion collections or all the other stuff that we've done thinking about what's the fee we're going to get out of this. We thought about the legacy and the messaging that we were going to get across.
Wow.
And we have this thing called Design is About. This has been with us since Red or Dead. That design is. It's written there on our website. Design is about improving things that matter in life. And that comes from your background, that it's exactly the same as what my mum said about leave this world a better place. So everything we do, and we assemble teams who think like that. And when you can go in to an interview or do your bid, and you're not just saying that because you live it. We live it. The Prius is an example. We're not kidding. We do these things because we live this.
How are you making towns a better place? What sort of initiatives?
Well, I suppose the first thing we do is we've become really, really good at listening, but also there's listen. We do major engagement, but also people engage with us who might not normally engage, and I think that helps. My profiles help that, because people do. We're doing a master plan for Weymouth seafront right now.
Congratulations.
The engagement and the survey, the public survey, was launched yesterday, and the take up is absolutely massive. But it helps when I get on the front page of the local paper there, and the local BBC interview me. But and I suppose because I don't want to sound big-headed, but because I can resonate and what I say can resonate with people who live in the town. They know, because of our reputation, they know that we're going to think about them and their lives, and that we're not just some conceptual artists, and there are.
What are you doing in Weymouth? Can you?
I can't yet, because we've got to listen to everybody first, haven't we? That would be wrong.
All right. What are towns wanting? What are towns crying out for that they've not got currently?
Well, what they want is ultimately they want town centres that are vibrant, obviously, where they can meet and socialise. Obvious, because where did me and Geraldine meet? In a disco, in a town centre. Where did I meet with all my mates? In the town centre before we went to football. Nothing's changed. And what people don't want is just temples to consumerism. They want temples to humanism and to be with other humans. And that isn't easy, because consumerism generated, strong consumerism generated money, which generates profit and funds things. People getting together, not as easy, because I personally, when I get together with people, we don't spend money, we talk. And people might have a coffee, but that's a coffee's not going to change the a few people having a coffee is not going to change the financial situation of. So we'll do things like events that give people, small businesses, a chance. Large scale events like coming up in June, we've got the National Festival of Making in Blackburn that'll bring 60,000 people into the town centre, which is a national. We've been doing it now for many, many years. Council funded, Arts Council funded, sponsored, and that's an urban design project. First Light in Lowestoft, which is, I just absolutely love, a festival that's there to promote. We started that, and that's in 3 weeks now, in the middle of June. We've got a whole series of these things which replace the Debenhams. But they don't replace them 365 days a year, and you have to. There's no easy solution. But people want to get together. Ultimately, when people shop, that horrible thing in the 80s and the 90s, shop till you drop. A lot of that was a social thing. Apart from it was unsustainable, and ultimately was always going to be short-lived, because how many, 25% of all, I think Trade are the charity that did a survey that 25% of all women's clothing never gets worn. That stays in the wardrobe, brand new clothing never.
True.
And that was never going to. That was always going to stop, because how daft is that? Number one on your pocket, number two on the scale of the size of your wardrobe in shrinking homes, and number three for sustainability and climate change. So it's never going to work that. But we've got to. But that was social. So how do we replace social? That's the simple equation and the simple conundrum that we work on all the time. And it's when we work in coastal towns, it's a little bit easier, because you've got the promenade, you've got the beach, you've got all of that to get people social. It's a little bit more difficult in towns like Andover, but you bring back out the market town in these places, and so we've got a new project there, creating a market with the council called Second Sundays, which doesn't take place on the first Sunday of every month. It takes place on the second Sunday of every month.
And what, an event on the second?
And that's that's bringing people into the town centre on the second Sunday of every month into Andover to meet other people who are selling stuff and exchanging stuff and street food and all of that. Ultimately, it's about bringing people together. That's what towns are.
So you are known as being outspoken and not accepting, the status quo just because it's being done. What is on your hit list? What needs to be up? Where can Hemingway add value?
I still think we can do more in housing. There are still too many housing estates that where people don't want to live, and kind of it doesn't fill them with joy. But they have to live. I think there's an awful lot that can be done with flattered apartments in town centres, and there's an awful lot to do. We're only just starting on the future of town centres. There's so much to do there, and the idea of free events is something that we've become very good at. But there's more to do there. I often think about the perfect town centre is the Roman Forum, where you'd have, you have people debating, you have people exchanging things, you have a bit of buying going on, and you have somebody who's meeting somebody else and going off to love somewhere. You know, that we've got to create places that are, where life comes together, and towns do that, and there are many towns around the UK that are doing that brilliantly. Whether it's Hebden Bridge, whether it's Shrewsbury, Margate nowadays, but there are a lot of towns that have not got that mojo going at the moment. So there's loads to do. I'll be long gone before, and we'll have done a little bit more, but hopefully there'll be Hemingway Design and lots of other businesses sorting these issues out.
You're going nowhere. You look healthy and fit, and if I was to describe
could drop down tomorrow though, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
Who knows?
We do not know, so live each life. For me, I would describe you as alive, joy-filled, responsible, humble, and filled with integrity. Oh, you got
just like Boris Johnson.
Keep adding value to people's lives. Wonderful. Thank you. If you've loved today's podcast, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be right here every Monday with more incredible guests on the Designerati podcast. I'll see you then.